Fyodor did not know he was already losing everything. He stood in the fading light, watching his cattle settle across the wide steppe. 3,000 hectares lay beneath his boots. Dry wind moved through the feather grass like a low whisper. The herd was strong, the fences stood, the men did their work. From the outside, nothing looked broken, and that was the problem. If you have ever trusted something simply because it has always worked, then stay with this story, because what happened next did not begin with a storm or a gunshot. It began with a quiet woman's voice and a single question. Her name was Alisa. She arrived on the evening bus, stepping down onto the dusty stop with one suitcase. She held herself straight, and inside her was a stillness this land had not known for a long time. Fyodor saw her before she saw him. He recognized her immediately from an old photograph he once carried in his wallet. His daughter, the one who had left for the city with her mother 15 years ago and never returned again. He stepped toward her, his hat tight in his hands. Words sat heavy in his throat and went nowhere. He took her suitcase without asking. She gave a small nod. That was all. The ride stretched long and quiet. 30 kilometers of open land, the wheels of the old UAZ grinding over dry earth. Alisa sat beside him, hands folded in her lap, eyes moving across the horizon, as if measuring something no one else could see. Fyodor did not ask what she saw. He had already made up his mind about her. A city woman. She held a share in the farm because of her mother. She would come, sign the papers, take her money, and disappear. He had even prepared a sum. Modest, fair enough for someone who did not understand what she owned. He kept his eyes on the road. Alisa said nothing. That evening, the steppe lay under a wide sky filled with cold stars. Fyodor rode out to check the water troughs, leaving the house dark except for a single oil lamp burning in the kitchen. When he returned, hours later, the lamp was still lit. Alisa sat at the table. The account books were open in front of her, pages spread wide, columns of figures under her steady gaze. He did not look up right away. Fyodor stopped in the doorway, dust still clinging to his coat, and watched her. Something about the scene felt wrong. Not loud, not dramatic, just wrong in a way he could not name. "You found what you were looking for?" he asked. Alisa lifted her eyes then, calm, clear. "I found something," she said. That was all. No argument, no lecture, just a quiet statement that settled into the room like a weight. Fyodor shrugged it off. He poured himself tea, drank it standing, and said nothing more. Whatever she thought she saw in those books, it would pass. People who did not know the land always mistook numbers for truth. The land was the truth. He slept easy that night. Alisa did not. Building a quiet tension, the heat of the day. By morning, the air carried a sharp edge of heat already building. Alisa stood outside before Fyodor finished his tea, ready to ride. "I want to see the property," she said. He hesitated, then nodded. An hour, he thought, enough to satisfy her curiosity. They rode until the sun climbed high, then higher. Alisa did not ask about cattle breeds or fence posts. She asked about costs. "What does this section bring in? How much does it take to keep it running? When did you last compare the grass to the herd size?" Her voice stayed even. Her questions did not. Fyodor answered what he could, which was not much. He knew the land the way a man knows his own hands. He could ride it blind. He could sense weather shifts before clouds formed. He could tell when an animal was failing by the way it stood. But numbers? He had never needed them, not the way she meant. By late afternoon, dust coated their clothes and the horses moved slower beneath them. Alisa had said very little in the last hour. She was thinking. Fyodor could feel it. That quiet thinking pressed harder than any argument. They returned at dusk. The sky burned low and red behind the hills. The house stood still against it, the same as it had for years. Nothing had changed. Except something had. Inside, Alisa went straight to the table. She opened the books again. This time, she did not search. She pointed. "These hectares," she said, tapping the page once, "are costing you more than they bring." Fyodor let out a short breath. "That land has been with us since my grandfather." "I know," she said. "No challenge, no push, just that. And these," she continued, moving her finger down the column, "and these." Her hand stopped. Fyodor stepped closer despite himself. The numbers sat there plain and steady. No tricks, just figures he had never truly looked at. "They're draining you," Alisa said quietly. The word hung in the air. Draining. Fyodor straightened. "That's not how this farm works." Alisa met his eyes. "Then how does it work?" For the first time, he did not answer right away. The wind moved through the grass again. Low, constant, unchanged. Inside, something had shifted, and it was not going back. This second morning did not begin with argument. It began with a list. Alisa stood at the kitchen table, sleeves rolled, the lamp still warm from the night before. The books were open again, but this time there were pages beside them, filled in her neat handwriting. Fyodor paused in the doorway. He had slept, but not deeply. Something had been working at him through the dark, something he could not push aside the way he usually could. Alisa did not look up. "I need to speak with your men," she said. Fyodor stepped inside, slow. "What for?" "To understand what you're paying for." The words landed plain, not sharp, not accusing, just exact. Fyodor's jaw tightened. "My crew knows their work." "I didn't say they didn't," she replied, finally lifting her eyes. "But you're paying for more than work." Silence held for a moment. Then Fyodor nodded once. By mid-morning, the yard filled with men. Boots scuffed the dry earth. Hats stayed low. The workers looked from Fyodor to Alisa, unsure which one to watch. Alisa stood in front of them without raising her voice. She asked simple questions. "How many hours in the saddle each week? What sections do you cover? When was the last time you rotated the pastures?" The men answered, some quick, some slow. Two of them avoided her eyes. Fyodor noticed. He had known those men since he was a boy. They had worked with his father. They had stood silent, hats in hand, when the old man was buried. He had never once questioned them. Alisa did not press hard. She just listened and wrote. By noon, the yard emptied again. The men drifted back to their work, quieter than before. Fyodor stayed. "What are you getting at?" he asked. Alisa turned the page toward him. "These two," she said, tapping the names lightly, "are drawing full wages." "They've earned that," Fyodor said, sharp now. "They earned it years ago," Alisa replied. "Now they barely cover half the work you think they do." Fyodor's hand closed over the back of a chair. "You don't understand what they've done for this place." Alisa did not argue. She slid another page for numbers again. Clear. Unmoved by memory. "You're paying for loyalty, but you're not receiving it in return." Fyodor looked away, out the window. One of the men moved slowly across the yard, leading a horse that should have already been saddled. Something about his pace felt off. Too slow. Easy. Fyodor had seen it before. He had just never stopped to name it. "Getting older," he said, quieter now. "Yes," Alisa answered. "And they deserve respect, but not at the cost of your entire operation." The room settled into silence again. Not heavy. Honest. Alisa did not give him time to sit in it. "There's more," she said. Of course there were. Another blow, quiet and unrelenting. The room settled into silence again. Not heavy. Honest. Alisa did not give him time to sit in it. "There's more," she said. Of course there was. She opened another ledger. "Your feed supplier has been overcharging you." Fyodor let out a short, disbelieving breath. "That's Valerianich. He's been dealing with us for as long as I can remember." Alisa nodded. "Exactly." She turned the book. Line after line. figures that climbed just a little too high, again and again. 30% above market rate, she said. For how long? 6 years. The number stayed in the air. 6 years. Fyodor stepped closer. He read it himself this time, slow, careful, the same way she had. His fingers brushed the page like it might shift under his touch. It didn't. Voronin wouldn't? He already has, Alisa said, not unkindly. Fyodor's chest rose and fell once, hard. Outside, a gate creaked in the wind. The sound cut through the quiet. This is how it's always been done, Fyodor said after a moment. You trust your own people. You don't turn everything into bookkeeping. Alisa folded her hands lightly on the table. You're not being robbed because you trust people. You're being robbed because you never check if that trust is still deserved. Fyodor said nothing. The truth did not strike all at once. It moved in pieces, small shifts, a slow breaking. Alisa watched him, not pressing further. Then she spoke again, softer now. There's a difference between caring for your people and letting them take from you without giving back. Fyodor lowered himself into the chair. The wood creaked under his weight. For years, he had run this farm by instinct, by habit, by the way his father had shown him and his father before that. He had believed that was strength. Now, sitting at this table, he felt something slipping through his fingers. Not all at once, but steady, and he could not stop it. Alisa turned one more page. This is just the surface, she said. Fyodor looked up. There's more? She held his gaze. Yes. A long moment passed between them. Then she added, quiet but certain. The land itself is the biggest problem. The words settled deeper than anything she had said so far, because this was not about men, not about suppliers. This was about the land, the ground beneath his boots. Fyodor's throat tightened. That land stays, he said, firm again. Every hectare of it. Alisa did not argue. She only closed the book slowly. We'll talk about it tomorrow, she said. And for the first time since she arrived, Fyodor felt something he had not felt in years. Not anger, not pride. Something colder. Because deep down, where he kept the things he never spoke out loud, a quiet thought had begun to take shape, and it refused to leave. What if she was right about that, too? By the third morning, Fyodor did not ride out. That alone told the truth. For 10 years, nothing had kept him from the land at sunrise. Not storms, not sickness, not grief that sat in his chest like a stone. But that morning, he stayed inside. Alisa was already at the table. The lamp burned low. Papers spread in careful rows. Numbers lined up with a kind of order he had never trusted before. He stepped closer. Show me, he said. No defense left in his voice. Alisa did not waste the moment. She turned the ledger toward him and drew a simple line across the page. Here are your 800 hectares, she said, tapping one side. Good grass, strong yield, solid return. Her finger moved across the line. And here are the other 2,200. She did not need to say more. Fyodor stared. The figures told the rest. Cost against return, year after year, the same result. Loss. Quiet. Steady. Certain. His hand rested on the table, fingers spread like he needed something solid to hold on to. That land fed this farm, he said, voice low. My father fought for every inch of it. Alisa's gaze softened, but she did not step back. I know. Fyodor shook his head once. You're asking me to sell it. I'm asking you to see it. The room held still. Wind pressed lightly against the windows. Somewhere outside, a horse shifted in the yard. Fyodor looked at the numbers again, then away, then back. The truth did not change. It never had. He had just never looked long enough to see it. That land is all I have left of him, he said after a while. Alisa did not answer right away. When she spoke, her voice came quieter. You held on to it because letting it go felt like losing him again. Fyodor's jaw tightened. He did not nod. He did not need to. Alisa closed the book gently. You're not honoring him by losing everything he built. The words did not strike like a blow. They settled deeper than that. Fyodor let out a slow breath. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then he straightened. "What happens if I follow your plan?" he asked. Alisa reached for a clean sheet. Her pen moved steady. "Sell the 2,200 hectares," she said. "Keep the 800 that work." She wrote as she spoke. "Reduce the herd to match the land. Replace your supplier. Pay the 2 older men honestly and let them rest with dignity." The plan came together in lines and figures, clear, simple, unforgiving. 2 years, she finished. You'll be earning more than you are now. Fyodor watched her hand as it stopped. Everything in him resisted. Not the numbers, the change. He pushed back from the table and walked to the door. Outside, the steppe stretched wide and familiar. Every fence post, every hectare tied to memory. He stood there a long time. Then he turned back. "When do we start?" he asked. Alisa met his eyes. "Now." The next days moved fast, faster than Fyodor expected. Letters sent, accounts closed, new terms written. The feed supplier drove away one afternoon, his hat tight, his words short. Fyodor did not stop him. The 2 older men sat with him that same evening. No raised voices, just the truth spoken plain. By the end of it, both men shook his hand and walked away with something close to respect still in their step. That mattered more than Fyodor thought it would. By the 6th day, the house felt different. Not quieter, clearer. Alisa packed her suitcase that morning. The work was done. The plan stood. Fyodor drove her to the station. The same 30 kilometers, but not the same road. They spoke this time about the farm, about her mother, about small things that filled the space between larger ones. As the station came into view, their voices slowed, then stopped. The bus was already waiting, the engine idling. Fyodor lifted her suitcase down, set it beside her. He did not reach for it again. "You fixed in 1 week what I couldn't see in 10 years, he said. Alisa held his gaze. "You fix it by following through," she replied. A pause, then Fyodor asked, "Do you want me to buy your share?" Alisa looked toward the bus, then back at him. "No." The answer came steady. Fyodor frowned slightly. "Why?" Alisa took a small step closer. "I examined the land, the herd, the books." Her eyes stayed on his. "And the man. The most valuable thing on that farm isn't the cattle. It's a man who never gave up on it, even when it was breaking him." The driver honked, louder this time. Alisa did not turn. "I'm not selling," she said. "I'm staying, if you'll have me." The words hung between them, simple, final. Fyodor looked at her, at the daughter who had walked into his life like a quiet storm and left nothing untouched. He reached for her suitcase, lifted it, carried it back toward the car. That was his answer. Alisa followed. The bus pulled away without her. Dust rose behind it, then settled. They did not look back. Autumn came early that year. The land changed. So did the farm. Fences came down where they were no longer needed. The herd tightened. Numbers aligned with the ground. Within a year, the weight that had pressed unseen for so long lifted. Not all at once, but enough. One morning, Fyodor stood beside Alisa near the edge of the remaining land, the 800 hectares, strong, working, alive. He did not say anything. He did not need to. Alisa stood beside him. The ledgers closed at her side. The wind moved through the grass, steady, clean, and for the first time in years, nothing beneath it was slipping away. If this story stayed with you, leave a like and subscribe for more stories like this.